In 2003, one of the most loved and trusted brands in the world was quietly running out of money. Lego, the Danish toy company, the little plastic brick, a name that parents handed down to children across generations, was losing enormous sums, burning cash, and sliding toward bankruptcy. And here is the strange part. Lego had not grown lazy. It had not stopped trying. It was failing because it had been doing too much. That is a genuinely surprising idea, and it cuts against almost everything business culture tells us. We are taught that companies fail because they stop innovating, because they grow complacent and stand still. But Lego very nearly died of the opposite condition. It innovated too aggressively in too many directions, and in doing so, it quietly destroyed the economics of the one product that had made it great. This is Market Cap Stories. Today, how Lego innovated itself to the edge of death and what it took to come back. To understand how Lego nearly fell, you first have to understand why. For decades, it had been such an extraordinary business. At the center of Lego is the brick itself, and the brick is a small miracle of product design. Consider one feature often described by the company: a Lego brick made decades ago still fits precisely with a Lego brick made today. That compatibility is not an accident. It is the result of manufacturing the brick to an extremely tight, consistent tolerance, every brick, every time, within a tiny fraction of a millimeter. That precision produced something powerful, a system. Every Lego brick is part of one connected system in which any piece works with any other piece, and a system has remarkable economics. When a child owns Lego bricks and buys more, the new bricks do not replace the old ones, they combine with them. The value of the collection grows with every purchase. The product does not get used up, it compounds, and the brand built around that system was equally strong. Lego came to stand for something specific in the minds of parents: creativity, quality, patience, open-ended play. A parent buying Lego felt they were buying something good for their child, not just a distraction, but a tool for imagination. So by the late 1990s, Lego had what looks, on paper, like an ideal business, a beloved brand, a product that compounds in value, and the deep trust of its customers. And yet, within a few years, that ideal business was nearly bankrupt. So, what went wrong? The story begins, as these stories often do, with a fear, and the fear was not unreasonable. Around the turn of the millennium, Lego's leadership looked at the future and saw a threat. Children, the worry went, were changing. Video games were rising. Computers, the early internet, television, a whole world of digital entertainment was competing for children's attention. The fear was that the simple physical brick, a product in essence from an earlier era, would come to seem slow, old-fashioned, and boring to a new generation of children raised on screens. That fear led to a strategic conclusion. Lego, the leadership decided, could not remain just a brick company to survive in a fast-moving, digital, entertainment-driven world. Lego would have to become something much broader, a diversified entertainment and lifestyle company. That happened to have started with bricks. Now, I want to be fair. unfair to that decision because it is easy to mock in hindsight, and mocking it teaches you nothing. The fear was based on a real observation. Children's habits genuinely were shifting. Digital entertainment genuinely was rising. A company that ignored those trends entirely might indeed have been in danger. The problem was not that Lego noticed the threat. The problem was the response. And specifically, the response involved expanding into a long list of new businesses that Lego did not understand, and that quietly pulled focus and resources away from the brick. Let's look at what Lego actually did, because the breadth of it is the heart of the story. Lego expanded into theme parks, building and operating large Legoland resorts, which are enormous, capital-hungry, operationally complex businesses, very different from making toys. It moved into video games. It moved into television and movies. It launched Lego branded clothing. It opened retail stores. It pushed into children's lifestyle products of many kinds. The brand was being stretched across an enormous range of activities. At the same time, Lego changed the brick itself, or rather, it changed how it designed. With the brick in its sets, Lego dramatically increased the number of unique, specialized pieces. Now, I need to explain why that last decision, more unique pieces, was so quietly destructive, because it is the most important technical point in the episode. Remember that Lego's strength was the system, the idea that pieces are shared, standardized, reusable across countless sets. A standard brick appears in hundreds of different products. The company designs it once, makes the mold once, and produces it in vast quantities, which makes each one very cheap. But a unique, specialized piece, a particular shape designed for one specific set, is the opposite. It needs its own design work. It needs its own mold, which is expensive to make. And it is produced in much smaller quantities because it appears in only one product or a few. So each specialized piece carries far higher cost per piece than a standard brick. By multiplying the number of unique pieces, Lego was, without fully tracking it, steadily inflating the cost of its own products. Put these two things together: expansion into many unfamiliar businesses and an explosion of unique parts, and you get the deeper problem that almost killed Lego. The company lost control of its own complexity. Let me explain what complexity means here. In concrete terms, every new product line, every new specialized piece, every new business venture adds things that have to be designed, managed, manufactured, stocked, shipped, and tracked. A company with a few hundred standard pieces and a focused product range is relatively simple. To run a company with thousands of unique pieces, dozens of unrelated business lines, theme parks, video games, clothing, and retail stores is enormously complex, and that complexity has a cost all its own. Here is the dangerous part. Complexity cost is largely hidden. When Lego added a new specialized piece, the obvious cost, the mold, the plastic, could be seen, but the deeper costs were spread invisibly across the whole company. A little more strain on the design teams, a little more difficulty in the factory, a little more inventory to manage a little more complexity in the supply chain. No single addition looked expensive, but added up across thousands of decisions. The total cost of complexity became enormous, and because it was spread so thin, it was very hard for management to even see what was happening. And so, by 2003, Lego arrived at a painful situation. It was selling a great many products. Some of its sets were popular. The brand was still loved, but the company was losing large amounts of money. Many of its products were unprofitable. They cost more to design, make, and deliver than they earned. Many of the new ventures were draining cash rather than generating it. The diversification meant to save Lego from the future had instead loaded it with cost, complexity, and loss. By the end of 2003 and into 2004, Lego's losses were severe. The company was, by credible accounts, genuinely close to running out of money, close to the point where a beloved family-owned, decades-old company could simply fail. What happened next is the part of the story worth studying most closely, because the rescue of Lego did not come from a brilliant new product or a bold new market or more innovation. It came from discipline, from the painful work of doing less. Lego brought in new leadership to manage the crisis, including an executive named Jorgen Vig Knudstorp, who would go on to lead the company. And the turnaround they drove was, in its essence, a return to focus. The guiding question changed. It was no longer, what else can Lego become? It became, what is Lego actually for, and what should it stop doing? The turnaround had several hard components. Let's go through them. First, Lego sold off or stepped back from businesses that were draining it. Most notably, it sold a controlling stake in the Legoland theme parks to a company that specialized in running attractions. The logic was clear-eyed. Running theme parks is a real skill, but it is not Lego's skill. Better to let an expert operator run them and free Lego to concentrate on what only Lego could do. Second, Lego attacked the complexity of the brick itself. The company undertook a deliberate, systematic effort to reduce the number of unique pieces it produced. It cut the piece count dramatically, reportedly roughly halving the number of different elements it manufactured. Designers were now pushed to build creative, exciting sets using as much as possible the existing standard library of pieces rather than inventing a new specialized part every time. Notice what that accomplished. Fewer unique pieces meant fewer molds, less design overhead, simpler manufacturing, simpler inventory, and a lower cost per second. It directly attacked the hidden complexity cost that had been quietly bleeding the company. And importantly, it did not make the sets worse. A skilled designer working within a disciplined set of pieces can still create something wonderful. The constraint forced better, cleverer design, not weaker design. Now, I want to be careful here, because it would be easy to take the wrong lesson to conclude that Lego recovered by abandoning innovation altogether. That is not what happened, and the distinction matters. Lego kept innovating, but it changed the nature of its innovation from undisciplined to disciplined. Consider a few examples. Lego leaned into licensed sets, partnering with major film and entertainment franchises to make sets based on popular characters and stories. These sets were innovative and commercially powerful, but crucially, they were still at their core Lego bricks. The innovation sat on top of the core product rather than pulling away from it. Lego also paid close attention to its adult fans, a community of grown-up enthusiasts who built elaborate creations and cared deeply about the product. It developed sophisticated, complex sets aimed at adults. It engaged with fan communities for ideas, and later, Lego returned to the digital world, but on stronger terms, with successful video games and a hit feature film that, importantly, celebrated the brick rather than competing with it. So the real distinction is this: before the crisis, Lego's innovation was centrifugal. It spun outward, away from the core, into unrelated businesses. That diluted focus and drained cash. After the turnaround, Lego's innovation was anchored, it was tied to the brick, built around the brick, designed to make the core product more desirable. The company did not stop being creative. It stopped being unfocused, and the results followed through the second half of the 2000s and into the 2010s. Lego returned to profit and then to remarkable, sustained growth, eventually becoming one of the largest and most successful toy companies in the world. The Lego story is dramatic, but the pattern underneath it is extremely common enough that recognizing it is genuinely useful. The pattern goes like this: a company succeeds with a focused, excellent core product. That success generates confidence, resources, and ambition. The company then begins to expand into adjacent products, then into less adjacent ones, then into businesses only loosely connected to the original. Each individual expansion is justified with a reasonable sounding argument. Each one seems on its own like growth, but collectively, the expansions add complexity, split focus, consume management attention, and quietly raise cost until the company is sprawling, unfocused, and weaker at its own core than it was when it was smaller. And the recovery, when it comes, usually looks like Lego's recovery. It involves the difficult, unglamorous work of subtraction, selling businesses, cutting product lines, reducing complexity, and returning to the core. This is hard for a specific reason. Adding things feels like progress. It is exciting. It generates announcements and optimism. Removing things feels like retreat. It is painful. It means admitting that earlier decisions were wrong. But for a company that has overexpanded, subtraction is not retreat. Subtraction is the recovery. So what is the durable lesson? Here, the part worth carrying into the next case. The lesson is not never innovate or never expand. That would be just as wrong as the mistake Lego made. Standing still is genuinely dangerous. Industries do change. Companies that ignore every shift do fail. The lesson is more precise, and it is about a distinction. There is innovation. That strengthens your core. That makes your central product better, more desirable, more valuable. And there is innovation that competes with your core that pulls money, attention, and focus away from the thing you do best and spreads them thin across things you do poorly. So the transferable question is this: when you see a company expanding, launching new products, entering new markets, adding new businesses, ask one thing: does this make their core stronger, or does it simply make the company bigger, busier, and more complex, while quietly weakening the one thing that made it worth investing in to begin with? Growth and strength are not the same thing. A company can grow its way into fragility, and the cure, when that happens, is the hardest word in business: less. Fog. The transferable lesson: distinguish innovation that strengthens the core from innovation that competes with it. Growth and strength are not the same. A company can grow its way into fragility. Lego nearly died, not from a failure of imagination, but from an excess of it, from an ambition that forgot what the company was actually for. It survived by remembering, by returning to the small, precise, perfectly made brick and building everything else once again around it in a market full of companies, convinced that the answer is always to do more. Lego is a reminder that focus is itself a strategy, and that the most valuable thing a company can know is the precise, honest answer to a simple question: what exactly are we for? If this is the kind of strategic anatomy you find useful, subscribe to Market Cap Stories. We will see you in the next case. Yes, in closing, no cadence promise.